15th of March 2006, the Royal Flying Doctor Service flew one of their latest aircraft, Mt Gambier, to thank Mt Gambier businessman Mr Alan Scott for providing them with a generous donation of $400,000 over the next 4 years. The afternoon started at 4 p.m, with invited guests arriving for an afternoon tea. Shortly afterwards, the Royal Flying Doctor aircraft flew into Mt Gambier Airport and taxied to a position just in front of Mr Scott's hangar. The aircraft was then open for guests to climb up into it and inspect. Pilot Steve Davis explained to those looking at the aircraft the important features of the plane.
I had him written off, and the doctors and nurses worked on him all the way back. It was very confined. They worked 2 weeks later. This plane was sitting in our room.
Thanks to the fundraising efforts of the many branches of the Royal Flying Doctors, the planes are all fitted out with up-to-date equipment so patients flying in the aircraft are able to receive the very best medical attention while being transferred between hospitals. During the afternoon there were speeches made by various members of the Royal Flying Doctor Service, each emphasising the importance of the service to thousands of people across South Australia each year.
And that is an enormous contribution.
Many people owe their lives to the service because they've been flown quickly to a hospital to receive the expert medical attention they needed. Several of those people were in attendance as guests. As a tribute, the Royal Flying Doctor Service decided to thank Mr Scott and his family by putting the Scott's logo on the sides of their aircraft. The funds donated over the 4 years will be used to purchase equipment. This is the same for all funds raised by Royal Flying Doctor branches. There is a cooperative agreement between the non-profit group and the government, where the government pays for the wages and running costs of the RFDS, while fundraising pays for replacement and upgrading of equipment. During the afternoon, I spoke to Mt Gambier RFDS chairperson Jeanette Hancock about the branch's work.
The lower South East really didn't understand what the Flying Doctor was, so our group was formed mainly to make the public aware of what's happening with the Flying Doctor. Our first year we raised $20,000, which we thought was just wonderful. Wonderful, $20,000 the first year, and since then we've been around $40,000 a year. So
that's a pretty fair effort.
It's wonderful, and we try to do things that other charities don't, sort of stop interfering with other charities. But because the Flying Doctor is coming down here more often, people are aware and they realise what's needed in the southeast. So the money is coming in really well now.
How many flights a day or a week?
Averaging 2 a day now, 371 to Mt Gambier this last year. So when I first started back in 1996, it was 491 in the whole of the southeast. So as you can see, it's now 700 to the whole of the southeast. So, and people are getting very generous because we had one member joined and she said, but I've never used the Flying Doctor, but I'll help you. And her husband used it twice that year. So she's really dedicated now, and I joined because I'd used it and I knew how important it was, not just for me but for others. So you hear different stories and you know how grateful people are. A lot of lives are saved, mainly. You know, hospital-to-hospital transfers are important, but, you know, there are lives saved because people need to get to more facilities where there's better medical equipment.
And it has to happen quickly.
It has to. Well, originally, years and years ago, I had an operation in Adelaide, and I came home by road. 6 hours it took me to get home. And then when I had a big operation in Adelaide, 1 hour and I was home.
Now there's 10 different planes in South Australia?
Yes, there's 10 different planes. Port Augusta, Adelaide, which is the central section, we had them in Alice Springs. So I forget how many there are in Adelaide, but we work with Adelaide.
And this plane that we've got here today, is that going to be the main one used between Adelaide and Mt Gambier?
Oh, not necessarily, no. It depends where, you see, they could get called out. And we've had a plane come from Port Augusta because the 3 Adelaide ones, I think, were all out. So it depends where they're called out to. We're really, really craving for younger members. We have 2 94-year-olds.
Oh, that
And they're so dedicated.
Yeah.
But there's 2 94-year-olds, so, you know, they do everything they can to help us.
Yeah.
We need some more members. And if we can raise $40,000 a year in 6 months...
It's not a bad effort.
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah,
And I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of our volunteers, because volunteers are very special people. It's okay to be paid for what you do, but when you're a volunteer, you do it for the love of the job. And this is where I really admire volunteers.
So if you or a family member ever needs the RFDS, remember the hard work of the many hundreds of volunteer fundraisers and the generous support of businesses that keep it in the air. It's a great service, and while the individuals and the organisations are not wanting publicity, they do want the public to never take its service for granted and to join in as many of their fundraising events as possible.